Technology. And the first three are all about Mr. Zuckerberg with the silent F. Now, Facebook, in their wisdom and clownery, have decided to update some of their stuff on October the 1st, stating, quote, "We can also remove or restrict access to content, services, or information if we determine that doing so is reasonably necessary to avoid or mitigate adverse legal or regulatory impacts on Facebook." What a bunch of sad losers they are. It's okay to allow content like child porn, trafficking, arms sales, and several other illegal activities, yet spend vast resources on fact-checking the truth, then proceeding to delete the truth. And it has all the elements of a child not getting its own way, and so it takes its ball home. You know, what a pathetic bunch of morons these people are. Terrified of truth and reality and determined to close down all avenues of truth or proper research. Well, the solution is they, like the mainstream media, they both run on the basis of traffic to garner advertisement sales and income. And with no one on it, then those incomes plummet. Yet another Ouroboros program being ran by the clowns again then. And maybe it's time more of our members moved over to MeWe, and we can show the Hebrew-based Facebook owners what a real exodus looks like. Not the fake one in the book. Now, while some may be disappointed at Facebook's stance, I'm delighted, as it shows what we and many others are doing is taking the fight to them and holding their feet to the fire as such. They clearly don't like the heat, so let's turn it up. When Facebook talks about busting foreign influence campaigns, Russia is usually painted as the villain. But the social media giants recently wiped out a host of pages that were interfering in Latin American politics from Washington, D.C. No surprise there. And a group called CLS Strategies is one of many PR and lobbying groups that call the swamp of Washington, D.C. their home. Now, according to the company's own website, it, quote, helps clients win where it matters most, in the halls of government, the marketplace, and the court of public opinion, unquote. But behind the website's corporate speak, CLS Strategies lobbies lawmakers on behalf of foreign politicians and also corporations, and runs bespoke disinformation operations. And the company was caught last week operating 55 Facebook accounts, 42 pages and 36 Instagram accounts in Venezuela, Mexico and Bolivia. Now together these pages had more than 500,000 followers, funny that, isn't it? And sought to manipulate politics in these countries at a cost of $3.6 million to CLS's clients. Now Facebook announced on Friday that it closed the pages and the accounts. So who are the leading people in CLS? Well, this is what I came up with. Bob Chlopak, the founder of this group, or co-founder, And Bob served as the executive director of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, where he recruited candidates, mobilized grassroots support, and raised campaign funds for tight races in helping to elect Democratic majority in the Senate. Andrew Konashusky. Andrew also previously served as a spokesperson for the leading Democratic members of Congress, including as National Press Secretary for Senator Chuck Schumer, and also as Communications Director for the Anthony Weiner. And while in the House, Andrew also assisted the late John Murtha in his 2006 bid to become the House Majority Leader. Andrew, born in New York, born to uncertain. Alison Haley. Alison worked for the Global Strategy Group, where she focused on non-profit and political work. Connect the dots. In 2012, she worked on President Obama's re-election campaign in Florida, training volunteers and working to get out the vote. And so there we have it. 3 lead positions of this CLS all came from the Democrat background and likely connected to Citadel Services as well. But here is another twist of who this group is connected to. The co-founder of CLS, Peter Schechter, was also the founding director of the Latin American Center at the Washington think tank Atlantic Council, which is funded by the US and UK governments and the European Union and acts as a de facto organ of the NATO military alliance. CLS, it is stated, is a Washington, D.C. based company which advises politicians, companies, non-profits, Clintons, and international organizations. These type of sleight of hand companies operating as, quote, advisors, unquote, when in reality they are pushing agency-based clowns' rhetoric of deceiving the public in many countries has to stop. And whilst not confirmed, the 2 lead-based people out of this group both appear to be yet again born too. And if we're really going to talk about election interference, then why are we continuing to ignore the oversized elephant in the room, Israel, and their army of political lobbyists like AIPAC, J Street, and several others? How come that rarely gets mentioned? When virtually every Congress member, and some would argue Trump, is in the pocket of the Zionists. But what did their report state that we covered in From Russia with Love? We have 15 plus lobbyists for every American politician pushing the Israel agenda. Their words, not mine. Next, Facebook has continually denied that it participates in the practice of shadow banning. They're bad liars as well, which is a method of blocking a user's posts or comments from everyone except the user who made the post or comment. Do you understand what that's just said? You can still see the comment that you wrote, but everyone else can't. So now they're blocking individual posts or comments that they don't approve. And presumably to get around some fake government laws that rarely gets published or dealt with, they've been granted a patent, not a patent, a patent. And it shows that Facebook not only does practice shadow banning, but wants to protect by patent the method it uses for doing so. Now, despite the fact that Facebook executives denied the practice in a congressional testimony in April, the company was awarded a patent by the US Patent and Trademark Office earlier this month for an automated system that would, quote, receive a list of prescribed content and block comments containing the proscribed content by reducing the distribution of those comments to other viewing users, unquote, while continuing to display the blocked content to the commenting user, such as the commenting user is not made aware of this, that his or her comment was actually blocked, and they've patented it. That is shadow banning, right in your face. And since Facebook would use the patented system to shadow ban proscribed, read, banned content, one can safely assume that would include political speech deemed unacceptable by the social media giant. Now, recently, Facebook slapped down a post by the person who wrote this article and this magazine's parent organisation, the John Birch Society, as hate speech. What was in that post? Well, that post consisted of the cover of the July 8th issue of the print edition of the New American. That showed a real picture of an illegal border crossing and carried the caption, "Immigrant Invasion." Apparently that's now deemed hate speech. And in my opinion, these are dangerous waters we are swimming in currently, with this advance of technology that the majority of us have no idea it exists or how it works, all carefully hidden in agreements of consent to use their products. It's a bit like what Mr. Trump said. If you're going to present a budget bill, I want it item by item, so you can discount what you don't want. But Microsoft and all these others make you sign these agreements, or you can't use Facebook, or you can't use this product, or you can't use that. And this is how they get you tied to agreements. That's wrong. And it's a bit like the Weather Channel app. Yes, the apps again. That to access the weather, which is actually a safety act for and by the people, I might add, given the amount of bad weather we get in this country, that demands access to all your files, pictures, social media comments, and contact lists for a weather app. Of course, the Weather Channel is owned by IBM, or IWASM. Next technology item or scientific news. is ahead of a slew of new missions to Earth's natural satellite, it says. Researchers have detected a bizarre and unexpected anomaly on the lunar surface. The airless, liquid, water-free moon is, quote, rusting, unquote. And according to scientists, they find this perplexing discovery has its roots in 2008 when the Indian Space Research Organisation's Chandrayaan-1 orbiter surveyed the moon's surface and discovered water ice. And it wasn't until recently that Chuai Lai of the University of Hawaii and his fellow researchers discovered signatures in the data matching the iron oxide hematite, a form of rust that normally requires the presence of both oxygen and water. And they said it's very puzzling. The moon is a terrible environment for hematite to form in. Now, for iron to rust, it needs an oxidizer. But thanks to solar wind from the sun, the lunar surface is bombarded with hydrogen, which is the exact opposite of an oxidizer known as a reducer in scientific terms, which adds electrons rather than taking them away from materials it interacts with. Now, the researchers posit that trace amounts of oxygen on the moon are actually runoff from the Earth's atmosphere. Oh dear. How can you have trace amounts that run off from the Earth, particularly when most of the Earth is covered with masked people, really? And they say it's carried over by the planet's extended magnetic field known as the magnetotail, and it's hitching a ride some 239,000 miles to the moon. Oh dear. The scientific community's explanation of things when they're covering up lies gets more bizarre by the week. Something for you all to ponder on is the moon crescent shaped to do with light reflection, or is something eclipsing it each month? Next pondering. If the moon is rusting, perhaps as many have posited that the moon is actually an artificial satellite whose orbit and rotation defies all natural cosmic laws, then perhaps scientist experts should listen to the so-called conspiracy theorists a bit more. Just saying. Next, technology. Cyber warfare is a plastic word used to promote fear, uncertainty and doubt, it says, and it generally involves the hacking of enemy computer systems and networks. But since the rise of social media, it has an added information or propaganda element to influence foreign audiences and affect adversary and enemy decision making. And with the formation of groups like the 77th Brigade and Integrity Initiative, both from the UK, however, attest to the fact that any and all audiences are actually a target. And the objectives in cyber war usually include one or more of the 5 Ds: deny, degrade, disrupt, deceive, or destroy. A bit like the New Age cult 5D rhetoric then. Deny, degrade, disrupt, deceive, and destroy. I digress. Now, information operations, IO, or inform and influence activities are closely linked to cyber war, and sometimes these are having overlaps with PSYOPs, and sometimes is an underestimation, is in my opinion. Sometimes these are having overlaps with PSYOPs. Most of them are. Now, the IO is defined by the US military as the integrated employment during military operations of information-related capabilities in concert with other lines of operation to influence, disrupt, corrupt, or usurp the decision-making of adversaries and potential adversaries while protecting our own. Now, this could mean, among other things, the spreading of false information, impersonation, denying network access, internet and local, and also the destruction of hardware. Now, the former two are more in the range of IO, the latter two are in the range of cyber attacks and war. So, in other words, IO can be performed in any domain using cyberspace. Now, one of the ways of influencing during this is an airplane dropping leaflets with a message aimed to influence an audience is actually conducting an IO psychological ops without using cyberspace. Now, similarly, operations in cyberspace are not limited to IO. So how does this all work? Well, they use it by manipulating, for argument's sake, an enemy airport computer system. To disable the fuel pumps is a cyberspace operation, but not an example of IO. So how are they wishing to expand this field of operations? And here is a line from their own manual. Listen closely. To foster a world-leading reservoir of potential cyber talent amongst children and young people, initially 12 to 18-year-olds, but spreading to the younger children as the program evolves. These are two leaked documents from II, Integrity Initiative, who are a rogue think tank group, in 2016, which have argued that a focus for the government should be the recruiting of school children to remain ahead of the competition in the cyberspace domain. All very Hitler Youth programs, that to me. Now, in 2020, Matt Kennard of Declassified UK reported that the GCHQ tries to recruit school children from the age of 4 and up, offering lessons on how to hack passwords and vulnerable machines, and also how to spy on other children's Wi-Fi traffic. I'm going to read that line again so it sinks in. GCHQ tries to recruit school children from the age of 4 years and up, offering lessons on how to hack passwords and vulnerable machines and how to spy on other children's Wi-Fi traffic. Now, this Cyber Schools Hub program was set up in 2017, and it says it seeks to give young students the space and opportunity to excel and explode into the market of cybersecurity and innovation. And Bill Blunden opines that the gilded hyperbole of cyber war being peddled to the public is dangerous because it distracts us from focusing on actual threats and also constructive solutions. And there you have it. Remember Clowns in Panic? I guess the Robert David Steele project of us all, quote, becoming the intelligence, unquote, has a whole new meaning and understanding now. And this is again what we warned of in the Clowns in Panic. And the object of this is to save clowns money. And to the agencies, listen very, very closely again to this next piece. And most, if not all, agency jobs will go, as the public will be the new collective agency. Go and look at Robert David Steele's conveniently named OSS.net website. He tells you there and then. All under the banner of OSS and NATO. The object is to save clowns money, and most, if not all, agency jobs will go, as the public will be the new collective agency, all under the banner of OSS and NATO. Yes, you heard that right. And what this is adult children using children to spy. Oh my, how the human stock has fallen. And it also confirms of how the old control system has completely collapsed.